Hello, welcome to Zeens and Roger. In this video I am going to spend some time talking about crochet pattern testing and what to expect from crochet pattern tests, whether or not you are a tester or a designer. I've done both. I am a crochet designer. I've written lots and lots of patterns. I have also tested for other crochet designers, and hopefully that's given me enough experience to be able to give you an overview of the whole process and what it entails. In this video, what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about what pattern testing is and what it's not. I will tell you why we need crochet pattern testing. I will perhaps explore the dark side a little bit and the negative stuff, but I want to try and avoid that where I can, although it is present, so it is something that we probably should talk about. In doing this video, what I want to do is kind of explain the story from both sides so that everybody has a better idea of the overall picture, so that we can kind of move forward, so that there's no debates really, no arguments, and hopefully get a balance of everything. I'm just cutting in here. I've talked for about an hour. I think I finished everything, but just to say that it took me a good few minutes to get into the swing of things on this video because I was worried about forgetting stuff. So I don't feel like I found my way for a bit. Forgive me, keep going. I think I get a bit more with it as the video goes on. So what is pattern testing? In a nutshell, pattern testing is going over an unpublished pattern, usually from an independent designer, to check that it works. Is it clear? Can you follow the pattern well? Can you make the finished object from following the pattern? And is the experience a good one? The expectation would be that you would then feed back the information that you gleaned from it, give it to the designer in some form of feedback, albeit polite, nice, gentle feedback, but that's constructive and useful rather than just critical or negative. What pattern testing isn't is tech editing. Tech editing is a different story, and it involves maths and style formatting and checking that everything has clarity and a pattern is kind of streamlined and makes sense from those perspectives. It's extraordinarily important to have your pattern tech edited before it goes for testing. Once or twice I've done it the other way around, and it's not fair on testers, and it's actually not fair on the designer either. Hello, it's me from the next day. I'm doing the editing, and I've just realised that I didn't clearly explain why it's not fair for the testers and all the designers actually. And that's because, well, the pattern just isn't ready if you haven't had it tech edited. It's going to be poor quality. And that's not fair on the makers, because obviously it's going to make no sense when you're trying to work through the pattern. And for designers, well, do you want to see that side of you exposed to lots of people? Not really, because it's going to make people go, well, this pattern's awful. So in that respect, it's just not worth doing. You get your pattern tech edited first. You find a tech editor who has experience and the mathematical know-how, wizardry, who can make sure that all your stitch counts work, it makes sense, all the formatting that you've got is uniform throughout the pattern, and then it'll be ready for testing with a group of testers that the designer has collated, maybe through a call out to Instagram, maybe through a Facebook page, or there's loads of different ways actually of finding testers. I'll talk about that in a minute. Ultimately, what led me to recording this video is that I have seen loads of people online over the last few months getting quite heated about pattern testing and the difference between testing and tech editing, and it seems to me that there are a lot of crocheters out there, new designers especially, who don't understand that tech editing and pattern testing are two different beasts. That's not to say that during testing, those with eagle eyes and a really good attention to detail, they can't spot the odd typo and things like that and something that doesn't make sense to them. That's fabulous, that's what testing is, but the bulk of that has been ironed out before it even reaches a tester. Sadly, most indie crochet designers don't have a budget for paying for testers, especially if you were doing something like a garment where you might have 3 testers per size, 9 sizes, that's 27 testers. Immediately you are in the negative when it comes to any potential profit, especially when you put in hours and hours of work into the design and the making of a crochet pattern. So unfortunately, it's one of those things that is an unpaid gig, and we rely very heavily on the kindness of strangers. And essentially, we ask people to volunteer their time to spend making our latest pattern, our latest design, in the hope that they get an exclusive insight into the behind the scenes of a crochet design and what goes in at that stage of testing. So why do we need pattern testers anyway? What's that all about? There are a few reasons, and I think my favourite one is that it's a community-led way of making sure a pattern is clear and succinct and works for everybody who comes after that testing period. So people that essentially buy the pattern later, you've had lots of feedback from your testers in the form of a group chat who have all gotten together to talk about their view of the pattern. They can partake as little as often as they want to and just get chatting essentially, and it's a way that I've made friends in the past. I am in touch with lots of people that have been in the same testing groups that I've been in. I am still in touch with people that have tested my patterns in the past, and we've gotten on really well from those group chats. So that community spirit is one of the really good things about pattern testing, and one of the reasons why you might want to do it. It's also kind of mutually beneficial. So for the reasons that I've already said, plus more, it works out, or should work out, for both parties quite nicely. If you want to help an indie designer, then not only gives you satisfaction, you also get an exclusive insight, a behind the scenes view of that tester's brain and what's going on, and you get direct access to them to ask them about loads of different questions, whether or not it's related to the pattern or actually just designing and testing in general, if that's your bag. If it's not, then great, you don't have to be a tester. Pattern testing is a choice, basically. Nobody would ever expect somebody to feel obligated to do it. And for me, it was a way of getting my foot in the door to design and working out what I needed to do for my own pattern writing and things like that by volunteering my time to designers. And it was kind of like a two-way street. I felt like it was really useful for me and beneficial for me as a future designer. But I mean, you don't have to want to design to be a pattern tester at all. It could just be that kind of community spirit element, or just the idea that you want to help somebody who is doing what they love, and in turn by doing what you love, which is crochet. We are all here because crochet is awesome, right? There's going to be loads of other reasons as well. I always forget and don't touch on everything that I want to say, and it's really difficult to remember everything. Even if I have notes, I will still forget things, or not have thought of reasons why pattern testing is something that you should do, because there is a dark side to pattern testing, and that's kind of what led me to do this video, write a blog post about it as well, because I just published one this morning and I've already had a few comments on it, which is really interesting feedback actually from people's own experiences of being a pattern tester and or a tech editor and or a just a maker. So it was this kind of negative debating that was happening online that kind of made me think that I should write about it and talk about it, because I want to hopefully push that negative stuff aside. If we talk about it, share what it could be and should be, then that knocks away any kind of confusion, any kind of assumptions about what pattern testing is, because as I've said, it is not tech editing, and a lot of the debates online are thinking that they are one and the same when they're not. So you'll see people, maybe some designers, and this is not just restricted to crochet, it's about knitting as well, I think, but the expectations put upon makers who are volunteering their time to do a test for a designer, the amount of stuff that they're asked to do, whether or not that's to take a bajillion photographs to share on social media, whether it's to, I don't know, even film reels and post stories and share it amongst their own group of friends, then almost do a tech edit of the pattern, because has that pattern actually seen the light of day in terms of tech editing, or has it just been hastily put together by the designer? Because speaking from experience, it's really hard to pattern write and get everything 100% perfect. To have that second pair of eyes cast over your design is what you need, because you just don't see everything. And what you want to do is, by the time it gets to the tester, is to have most of those mistakes gone so that they can actually have a really nice time when they're working with you. But basically, pattern testers shouldn't be exploited by designers, because ultimately it's not fair and they're doing you a massive favour. That goes for things like unreasonable deadlines too, and asking people to smash out a fully made project in too short a time period. I've been guilty of it before I even thought about it, because back in the day when I was designing my first patterns, I mean, I was a stay-at-home mum, didn't have like that many major commitments, so, and not to mention that I was absolutely obsessed with crochet at that point, and it's like I would spend every waking moment trying to get more stuff made. I could smash out a cardigan really quickly, but that's not the case for everybody, and I didn't really think about everybody else. I just assumed that people would be as quick as I was, but that's, again, it's not fair. And then there's people that ghost the groups and basically do a take the pattern and run, and so as that would be the tester. They join a group knowing that basically what they're going to do is take a free pattern and then slowly back away and quietly not say anything, and then they're just gone. So it works both ways. There's some negative stuff in both gangs, and we can avoid all of that. We don't have to have any of that actually, if we kind of have a clearer set of rules or guidelines. Do you know what's important? It's communication, and I think that helps enormously. Let's not make any assumptions about anything, because if we are not clear in expectations, then how is somebody going to know? And obviously that works both ways. So communication is key, and that means sort of setting out everything from the beginning. So if you're a designer, this is how I do it. So I go on Google Docs, Google Forms, what's it called? I create a form, a questionnaire on Google, on Google Drive. What I do is lay out, it's always a really simple questionnaire. You're asking for the person's name, their email address, perhaps their Ravelry username, and if it's a garment, then you would ask about measurements and sizes and things like that, but you would share that information first as well. So right at the top, you make sure that you let potential testers know how much yarn you need to complete that test, what kind of yarn, hook size, and all the measurements and the deadline. Share that. Are you using UK or US terminology in your pattern? Add it. Add all the details that you can think of so that testers are fully aware of all the elements of the test. You could even add a box for additional comments so that people can ask further questions if they're unsure. Ooh, I kind of chop and change this every time I do a test because I learn a little bit more each time and hopefully improve a little bit each time. But hopefully if you are watching this, then you've got a really good resource in order to set up your first test. And then when you're in testing, always make sure that you're vocal in the group. And this is, as a designer, you want to be there even daily, if not multiple times throughout each day, to make sure that everybody's okay. I always worry that people aren't okay. Are they struggling? Do they think my pattern is rubbish? Have I done it drastically wrong, even though I know it's been tech edited? I worry, and I want people to have a good experience because that's only the right thing to do, I suppose. To be present is really important in that communication, and I guess, yeah, if you're a tester as well, I don't mind a little bit of radio silence. I know not every tester wants to be that chatty, and all they want to do is head down, make the thing and enjoy the process. Just check in once a week and just go, yep, still making, still good, everything's fine. Happy with that. It's just when you don't hear from somebody for several weeks, are they a ghoster or are they still making it? Are they okay? So be clear with those elements. You could even say as part of your test, it would be lovely to be able to hear from people, and are they okay with that? And I also want to mention as well, it's okay if you can't complete the test as a tester. If you are struggling, if you've bitten off more than you can chew, something's going on in your life and it just means nope, you're not going to be able to meet that deadline, it's okay to let that designer know. You can do it privately, you don't have to do it in the group, but you could say, sorry, I'm no longer able to take part in this test, I'm really sorry. And then that's, we have to say, you don't even need to give a reason, but as long as you let the designer know, the designer can then kind of go, right, that's fine, and work out what to do next, because chances are that designer also has multiple people testing a pattern, so they're not relying solely on one person. And also I think an experienced designer has seen this multiple times before. When people can't complete tests, it's totally fine. But when you don't know if somebody's still going or if they've just kind of slowly backed away, that's when it can get a little bit stressy. Communication is also really important because it's the whole aim of the game for pattern testing, really. The testers are communicating what they are picking up from that pattern, whether or not it's an error, whether or not it's a suggested change, whether or not it's some confusion. Maybe they look at an instruction and go, well, that could be interpreted in more than one way, so maybe the designer could look at changing the wording. I mean, that is the point of testing, isn't it? Talking and letting people know your thoughts. So that's a really important aspect of pattern testing. And that was one of the things that actually I'd read online with the dark side of things, is that designers can get quite, what's the word? I mean, rude, snappy, because probably they're hurt by people critiquing their pattern. But ultimately, that's the whole point. You need to listen to those criticisms without being overly defensive. And that's why you've asked people to have a look at it. It's not so that you can get a pat on the back and be told how wonderful it already is and it needs no changes. And if that's the case, then well done. But in my experience, I don't think I've ever had any pattern be 100% perfect. I've always made tweaks based on the feedback from my testers. Another thing to point out is that the communication thing is important because we don't want to make assumptions about a pattern. So I have, as a pattern tester, I'm the only person thinking this, right? Because nobody else has said anything about that particular section of a pattern. I think it's wrong, but because nobody else is saying it, well, it must be me. If you have those feelings when you're testing a pattern, do speak out. Don't make the assumption that it must be you and not the pattern, because it probably is the pattern. I'll just jump in here and go over some of the ways that you could become a pattern tester if you want to, because it's different for everybody. For me, I just put out a call on Instagram, which doesn't always work because Instagram is a bag of nonsense at the moment, and it's not always the greatest path, but there are other options should you be struggling with Instagram. And one is Yarn Pond, which is essentially a one-stop shop for testers and designers, but it's not something I've ever looked at because I've always felt it was more professional than I was, because I like to do things sort of like in a relaxed sort of way, but it seems to be a very thorough approach to pattern testing, and one where there's a lot of security for both sides, if that's the avenue you want to go down. But as I said, yeah, I use Instagram for the main part, and I've told you about that Google Doc thing I've done, and I do that for all of them now, whereas I used to just do emails. So if a designer wants, they can just go send me an email, send me a direct message, and then they'll collate people that are interested via that means. Or Ravelry. There are testing pools on Ravelry, and I tried that once and I got told off because I don't think I followed the rules. So I kind of have decided that that one wasn't for me because the rules were too strict. But I think the rules are there for a reason, and that's okay. But it didn't work out in my experience because I can't remember, it was a long time ago. But it's an option, and it's one worth exploring, because I think actually for the most part it's a really successful way of meeting testers and designers, depending on which one you're interested in. Facebook groups as well, there's loads of testing Facebook groups apparently, and I learned that from doing research for this thing that I'm doing now. I didn't do enough research to actually go and find them, but they're there. And the other thing as well is that I know lots of designers actually have a list of testers. They essentially, via either newsletter or social media, will ask for people to come forward, and should they be interested in any future tests, they have a list of people that they can contact. I don't do this, even though I do think it's a really good idea, but I don't do it based purely on the fact that 6 months down the line I feel reluctant to approach them to go, I've got a pattern, do you fancy testing? For them to go, no, I don't like it. I don't want that feeling, so I don't do it. I mean, chances are it's not going to happen. So let's talk a little bit more about requirements for being a crochet tester, because it would be interesting just to break down the few main things that it involves. The first one being your level of experience. And I would say that it doesn't really matter whether or not you're a beginner or an experienced crocheter, because ultimately what you want is to have people that have a broad range of experience, so that it's a more realistic way of testing that pattern. Because in the real world, when your pattern is for sale, anyone could buy that pattern and want to make it. They're not all going to be super experienced crocheters. You want to have some people that are beginner and intermediate, because that's more realistic. So if you're interested in being a pattern tester and you are reluctant because you think you're not experienced enough, it's nonsense. It's not true. With the caveat of, if you're going to put your name down for a really advanced pattern, knowing that you only picked up a hook last week, that's probably not a great idea. But you know, if you've got a few patterns, a few projects under your belt, and you're pretty confident that you know all the stitches and you know how to read a written pattern, then fabulous. Why not put your name down and give it a go? And the other thing being deadlines. Can you meet the deadlines that are part of the test? Because sometimes it can be really exciting to be part of a pattern test and you kind of think, yeah, I can do that, no problem at all. But then you forget that actually you've got 2 weeks booked off because you're going away, or you've got a wedding to go to, and then, oh my God, there's the kids to look after, and then, you know, you've got actually to go to work. Is the deadline realistic for you? Try to kind of like, think about whether or not you'll be able to meet that deadline. I think a lot of designers are pretty flexible on it. I know I am. Like if somebody takes part in a test and they need a few extra days, then that's cool. I don't mind. But I don't think somebody's going to wait like an extra 2 or 3 weeks. I think that might have been the red arrows flying over. Not sure. They flew over yesterday as well. So anyway, don't overcommit. Try not to overstretch yourself because it gets stressy and panicky, and you don't want that because you want this to be a really nice time. It's supposed to be a good experience, not one where you're absolutely bricking it because the deadline's approaching and you haven't done all the making. And the next one is, I've already touched upon this a little bit, but it's having a confidence and willingness to partake. And the way I've touched upon this is about the communication, and it's about having the assertiveness to basically speak up when you have doubts about an instruction. So I think that's a really important skill to have, because you need to kind of have that bravery to be able to go, I think row 1 is wrong. just if you can just go, I'll say that, no problem. Good. That's what we want you to be. I think designers want you to be bold at coming forward to say and question certain instructions that are confusing or just wrong. And you don't need to like be present every day in a group chat, but be there a little bit, be chatty, be sort of friendly and confident, and you'll be fine. Nobody needs to know that in real life you're actually quite shy. Also, that confidence and willingness is really important for just cracking on and basically getting on with the crochet without worrying too much. And so, although it's great to be involved and chatty and stuff like that, also remember that you need to have that kind of, what's the word? Autonomy, I was going to say. The independence to just to make the pattern and not need to worry at every step of the way. So if you're truly inexperienced at reading a pattern, maybe try and like balance a test so that it's a test for a simpler project rather than going full on into a cardigan or something. Next up as well is having a keen eye and attention to detail, because despite a pattern being tech edited, typos and things will escape and slip through the net and reach this stage. So it's a draft pattern, it's not going to be perfect, but hopefully the giant mistakes are gone, if they were ever there in the first place. Having that kind of that attention to detail is important for a test, because also you don't want to skip over an instruction and assume that the pattern is wrong without realising that actually you hadn't noticed that it was there in the first place. And also you're helping out everybody who comes after you. Again, people that buy the pattern are going to be really appreciative of the fact that all of these things were ironed out at these early stages. So what if you get the pattern and actually you want to change something in it? I would say don't do it until you've spoken to the designer. ask them if it's okay to make that change, because it could be an important element to them. Maybe they've never tried a technique before, and that's the reason why they're testing the pattern. So to decide not to do it in a certain way might actually not be beneficial to the designer. So you want to make sure first by asking. And the same goes for things like any kind of adaptations that you're going to make to the pattern. Just check in, because sometimes they're going to be okay. Sometimes it'll be like, yeah, no problem at all. Other times it might interfere with things like the calculated yarn amounts that are required, and they want to test that for each size. So if you make it extra long or extra short, it's going to mess that up. But you never know if you don't ask. Occasionally I'm happy for people to make changes, that's okay. But as I say, it could have an impact on something that the designer actually wants to find out. They want the data for that particular section. But honestly, don't be afraid to ask. So something else not to be afraid of is providing that constructive feedback. I get it. You don't want to upset somebody by going, well, that didn't work. Think about the words you use, rather than, you don't want to be like completely blunt, sugarcoat it a little bit. But for the most part, I think designers need to have a little bit of a thick skin at this stage, because sometimes they're not going to agree with feedback. You have to listen to what people are telling you, because again, what's the point in this test otherwise? So whilst you don't have to provide like huge swathes of information, and actually what I do is create another form to make it easier to provide feedback, and honestly it's the best thing ever, because it helps me. I can collate all the data in a nice little tidy way, but also for the testers it spells out exactly what's required, so you don't need to think about what it might be that you need. It's all for you in the form. So it could be even if it's a bag or a scarf or a garment, you're probably going to be asked to provide the measurements, like the width and length and things like that, and how much yarn you used. Were there any difficulties in the pattern? What were your favourite bits? And then maybe another section so you can give a more broader overview of your thoughts about the pattern. So I know that a lot of designers do ask for photographs of a finished object, and it's not just so that they can exploit you for making lots of pattern sales, but actually good photos, and it doesn't have to be a whole album's worth, but good photos can help show a designer what the item you have made looks like when you, a different person, has made it. The photographs will help the designer see what a tester has done to be able to work out whether or not their pattern works. And then to share those photographs, maybe you don't have to share them everywhere and anywhere and all across the board, but if you were to upload them as a project on Ravelry, think about all the people that come after you again, and they're going to be able to see what the pattern looks like in different yarns, different colours, and maybe they can't decide, and your photograph helps them decide what colour to buy for their pattern, for their project. And also, this one's really important. If it's a garment and it's made in lots of different sizes, makers are going to want to see what the pattern looks like in their size. And the designer will want to see that it works across all sizes, and they can only gauge that by the photographs, really. I mean, yes, measurements and things like that absolutely gives you an impression of it working. But to visually see it makes you go, brilliant, it worked for size 2 and size 9. That's amazing. You know, it's a reassurance for the designer as well. So by the time a pattern is at the testing stage, a crochet designer has been working on that for probably months, and it's their baby, and they're really, really kind of attached to it and feel very strongly about it, and now it's time for other people to see it, and it's kind of like an apprehensive time. There are also some things that crochet designers need to take into account by the time it comes into testing phase. But unless you're able to pay testers, you kind of don't have much weight in terms of the whole process. You are relying on somebody's kindness and their grace and their generosity to volunteer to help you make sure that your baby is ready to release and publish as a sellable pattern. So the first tip would probably be to don't be one of those mean people that makes loads of demands because you're not in a position to make those demands. If you're asking the earth, then you're only going to make people feel resentment. So can you not be a pig about it? I think that's like a really important tip. And I've already mentioned one of the important tips, which is to be clear from the beginning. I mentioned that when I was talking about clear communication. Be clear from the beginning about what your expectations are and what you're looking for from this pattern test. Put it in that form that you create, if that's the way you're going to do it. And I want to reiterate as well about providing a generous deadline, because I've mentioned about me not knowing back in the day, and I would only give like a month to do a full-on garment, which is not enough time. These days, I think you're looking at a minimum of 10 weeks, if not 12 weeks for a garment pattern test. Obviously, it can be less if it's a smaller item that's being made. But think about it in terms of you put the call out for a pattern test. Well, what if your testers don't have the yarn? They need to order that yarn. It could take a week or two to arrive. They might need to work around other things. So they might not even get started for at least a fortnight after you've put that call for testers out. So provide a generous timeline. People will thank you for it. And I know it's really kind of, you're impatient and you want to be able to release the pattern because you're really excited about it, but factor it into your schedule if you can to time it so that it's being released at a suitable time. The other thing that I think is really weird is when, and I've seen this more and more in the last few months, but designers have started sending out portions of patterns because they don't trust makers to stick at it. Basically, they think that people are going to take the pattern and run. There might be a few people like that, it's true, but most people aren't like that, and it's really inconvenient to send somebody only like one section of the pattern, which for those that are really keen might complete that first section within a few days, and then they'll be waiting a week for the next section, and it doesn't seem right to me to do that. It says to me that the designer doesn't trust most testers. Probably because they've had some negative experiences, it's true. But one of my other tips is let the ghosters go, because they are not your customer. If people are going to put their name down for a pattern test and scarper, then just let them get on with it. I mean, life's too short to worry about it, and they would never have bought your pattern anyway. So send a whole pattern, make sure it's ready, make sure it's kind of what you are thinking of publishing. Because I have tested patterns before where I've just got the written pattern, no photos, no potential chart if they were ever going to have a chart at all. And that's a conversation for another day. You don't necessarily need to have charts, even though they're useful. But if the designer is going to put a chart in and they haven't at testing, why not? Why isn't it ready? And the pattern needs to be ready. And that includes all of those elements. I get it, sometimes it's not always possible, and if that's the case, let testers know that you're working on the next section, and that will be with them ASAP. But if it's the written pattern, the whole thing does need to be ready, because, well, actually, like, it's been tech edited, right? So the whole thing is ready. Send it to your testers. Don't worry too much about ghosters, because I think that's the only reason you're doing that, right? I won't talk too much about the next tip for designers, because actually I've already covered it pretty much, but it's just to be open-minded and try and have a bit of a thick skin when it comes to feedback, because I know it can be hurtful if people are too blunt, but it's to help you. It's not to take a jab at you, take a jibe at you. It's to help you. And even if it comes across as a rude criticism, actually, what is that person saying? Because it could help your pattern be even better than it is already. The next one, my gosh, don't charge testers. I've seen this talked about quite a lot, but I've never seen it ever on a tester call out before. Tester call out. I've never seen anybody say, and if you don't complete this, I'm going to make you pay for the pattern. I've seen people talk about it secondhand, but I've never actually seen it in real life where a designer said it and I've read it and gone, oh, wow. So is it a myth? Is it not? I don't know. I bet it's not. But still, why would you do that? They're doing you a favour. I mean, for all you know, somebody could have died. And that's the reason why they failed their test. They haven't died. Maybe a family member has died and they're grieving. And there you are going, I want £6, please. It's just not on. I mean, like I said, this is not about your customers here. This is people helping you out. So don't charge. It's naughty. It's giving designers a bad name, all right. And then also, I've seen this a couple of times and it's weird, but non-disclosure agreements where you agree to keep completely quiet before a patent's release. Not for a while, but I just thought it was a little bit strange, like it's hardcore. And we're just like a friendly group of people that like crochet. But whatever, don't do that. Unless it's for a book, I suppose. If it's for a book for a publisher, fair dues. But next on my list is ghosters, but I've talked about ghosters enough. I mean, not that and only briefly, but that's enough. It happens, go for it. I know it stings, but ultimately it's just not worth getting wound up about. And then the other thing, which I'm kind of like, as a designer, moving towards, but not brave enough to do yet, it's, do you still need testers? Have you got enough know-how and knowledge and experience to actually know that your pattern works well enough without the need to collate a gang of folks that are going to help you out? Because maybe you already know because you have got a lot of designs under your belt and you are good to go. Fair play if that's the case, because ultimately the only other reason you would need a group of testers is for your marketing. And so actually, if you're that experienced, there's no real reason why you're using testers. For me, I still, because it's quite a slow going process, design, because you're working on them for several months at a time, I still don't feel I'm there yet for garments. For other things, accessories, I don't often test because I'm fairly confident that that pattern works. It's the grading aspect that gives me the heebie-jeebies and the worries. And so that's when I would seek the help from testers. But if it's a bag, I won't always get it tested. Or if it's a shawl, I won't either. Depends on what techniques I'm using. If they're new to me and I've never seen them written down before, and I'm going to want people to check it over and make that thing to see if it does what I think it does. The more experienced a designer becomes, maybe, just maybe, they don't actually need to test anymore. Phew! I think I've covered everything I was going to say, but I have a funny feeling that I may have neglected some bits and bobs because I can't do it all, man. I try to be thorough in my research and in my thought processes, but sometimes you just miss things. So if I have done so, let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, don't forget to check out my others, because I do have loads and loads of videos on YouTube, whether or not it's crochet podcasts, video tutorials for patterns, and general waffle. I am here waiting for you to give me a watch. Thank you very, very much. And I will see you again next time. Cheerio, bye-bye.